Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor, and welcome to another edition of LFS, except with i3. I've fixed my microphone problems, and hopefully my sound issues are much better than last time. What I found out was that the jack, evidently, that I was using, because I was using the same headset I record with Gentoo on my other system, but for some reason I had a terrible hiss, a terrible sound issue. And so we've switched over to a USB headset mic, and that seems to be doing much better now that I'm not using that little 3.5 millimeter jack. So enough about the sound. Hopefully it's a lot better than it was last time. We have done some improvements. Did you hear that, Dirk? Some great improvements. We have i3wm. Now, the repositories or the book for Beyond Linux from Scratch does not have anything for i3wm. And if you go to the website for i3wm for the download, they will tell you that look for the package for the distribution that you're working in. Well, guess what, guys? Um, LFS isn't one of them that's listed, and I doubt it ever will be. In fact, let's go to that site real quick and we'll take a quick look at that. One moment. And here we go. So here is the i3 website, and if we look, we can download the latest version 4141, which is what I'm using. If we go down there, we see Debian, Arch, Gentoo, Ubuntu, BSD, NetBSD, all kinds of BSD, OpenSUSE, Fedora, and a few Slackware. I recognize that one. I do not recognize some of these icons. But then down below, we do have the source directory that we can get some of the source files for. And when you start looking into the instructions about dependencies, how to install this, it pretty much says you really should use the package for your own distribution, which there is nothing for LFS. It took me a great deal of time of trial, starting it, checking to see what I need, seeing what's failing, going first to the Beyond Linux from Scratch repositories to look to see if there's an actual package that works with 8.1, and also going through and trying to find source packages from either the Git or from SourceForge or wherever I can find them. Now, I will tell you, one of the biggest, most helpful things I actually ended up using was the dist files directory from my Gentoo box. So much of the source that I download for Gentoo will work in LFS. And I just used a lot of the same configure commands, such as LFS uses the /configure prefix equals /usr or user. And with that, I was able to install everything. Now, as you see by this browser window, I am actually using Basilisk. And Dirk got me on to trying Basilisk. I've been very happy with it. It is a Firefox clone, except without all the spyware. Although some of the plugins I like to use, they keep trying to disable. And so I keep having to uninstall them and reinstall them to make them work. One of the biggest drawbacks that I found with going to Firefox and leaving Chrome or Chromium is I was really spoiled by the app feature that Chrome has. I have found, however, with a few add-ons in Firefox, I can make this behave just like an application. For instance, if we don't have but one tile, then it goes away all the tabs. And if we hit believe it's F2, the address bar disappears, and now it looks like a standard application that you can go through and you can see everything. And yes, I do have a lot of Linux and a lot of Minecraft. I do enjoy watching those a great deal. Now I've got pretty much everything working really nice. For instance, if we come over here, since I initially installed XFCE, I went ahead and used the XFCE terminal for now, and that is what we see here. We've got our little splash screen, and as you see, this shows a little bit of the hardware that I'm using. It's, if I can find it here, an Intel Core i5 CPU, 2.5 gigahertz. Surprisingly, it's done really well with all the compiling that I've been doing with this system. We've got HTOP running over here, and Slurm. I got that from Irish, from his channel when he talked about a network analyzer that just shows you your throughput. And of course, I've got an MPD working with the visualizer even, so that I can listen to my old time radio shows working perfectly fine through there. Another thing that I was playing around with, and I have another screen over here, is the URX VT. And I almost kind of like the way I have it configured a little bit better. This, as you notice, is slightly washed out. And now I have the exact same thing, except that's not the right same thing. Let's see. That is actually that as XFCE terminal. This one is the URX VT. So a little bit darker, a little bit more bold. The colors pop out a little bit better. And after I got this set up, and then I looked back at my other version, which is right here, I thought, boy, that really looks a lot more washed out. However, this is a lot more how my Gentoo box was, and it wasn't very hard to set this up. Now, it was very difficult to get things like nitrogen to work. Faye worked okay for setting the background, but I used nitrogen, and it took me a little bit to get that installed and do the compiling. There were a lot of times when I was going back and forth to see how did I do that with Gentoo. Now with Gentoo everything is automated. In LFS you have to do it all by yourself, and that is very, very daunting. One of the biggest things that I find about LFS is that anytime you think you just want one little application, be prepared to have to be ready to download at least 10 to 15 others, compile each one, look at all the required dependencies, and then figure out if there are not only required but preferred dependencies or suggested dependencies that you might want for features that you might want to have built into the product. There were a few times that I would build it and then realize, oh, I need this and that, and it's not there. And then you go look at the suggested dependencies and you say, oh, that's where I would have gotten that. So you didn't have to download it, compile it, start all over again. Now, this hasn't come without its pains. When I was installing i3, after I got everything set up, it's like moment of truth. I edit my .x initRC. I set it up so it'll run i3. I log in. I've got an i3 desktop. As Dirk says, a black screen with some flashing cursors. And then I go to move my mouse around and I have no mouse. And then I start thinking, okay, what did I do to screw up this? So I start going through the Xorg information. Of course, okay, well, it's got to be something with the FX86 input drivers. But when I'd go into the FX86 input synaptics for this touchpad, it would fail telling me that my automake was too old. Now, how can my automake be too old? It's the same version that I've been using, and I really haven't been updating. And then I got a little nervous. I thought, I'm pulling in a lot of stuff from Gentoo, some of the packages. For instance, i3 depends upon an XCB XRM package. and there is no XCB XRM package in LFS. And I looked on the internet and tried to find and looked for and finally found something within that I thought might work, and it kept failing to compile. And I was, oh, I want this to work. What can I do? And that's when I initially thought, hey, well, I might have that package in Gentoo. Let's go and grab it and check it out. And it compiled beautifully. In fact, there were a lot of programs that I initially got from their source, and when I would go to compile, they would just fail with this or that or the other. In some cases, it was easy to figure out what it was missing and go grab something else, since what I'm trying to do with i3 is not documented within the Beyond Linux from scratch. So there was so much that it was just trial and error, try to fix. And so once I got that done, and then once I tried it and I got it running and the mouse wasn't working, it's like, oh, so close, so close. What have I messed up? But I have to start all over, maybe. I'm not familiar enough with LFS, and I know as a newbie out there, a lot of times you screw up one little thing and you think you gotta wipe the whole thing and start all over. It's not really the case. You just have to do some research and digging. I did finally find an article that told me try running AC local inside the source for the package that was failing. And I saw this on a different, but it was very similar, the error. So when I say AC local, that's ACLOCAL. I ran that, gave me no errors, and then I ran my configuration, no errors, and then I went and did my make and my make install, and it worked and it fixed it. And then I started my i3 session, and I had a mouse, and I had everything, and everything was wonderful and beautiful, and oh, I tell you, I feel so at home in i3 now. It it was so awkward going back to XFCE. Yeah, it's just i3. It's just great. I love the tiling window manager. I've gotten some applications working, for instance, like this one here. This is PCman FM. A very good application, lightweight for your files and things. And of course, I've showed you some of the other things that I've gotten there. I went ahead and installed the D menu, so I've got all of that up there and running. And of course, the basic things such as all those applications that came with XFCE that I shouldn't say that came with it. I had to install them, download them, compile numerous hours. If anybody ever says that Gentoo is tedious, point them to LFS. It's a nightmare trying to find all the right depths and figuring out the dependencies and then what you really want built into the package. Also, I'd like you to note I've gotten this nice little i3 status, and with the awesome fonts and everything, I've been able to duplicate a lot of what I had in Gentoo, which makes me feel very much like I am at home. And I forget that when you have the D menu up, nothing else will run. So I wasn't able to come back to this screen. All in all, I've been very happy with LFS. My wife might say a little differently. There were a few nights when she was saying, "Are you done playing with that? Because I can tell you're so frustrated because there were things that was like, no, no. LFS makes Gen 2 look so easy. It makes it, oh, Gen 2 after LFS is a cakewalk, let me tell you. And I have spent so much time now in this environment that I'm really not ready to throw it away. I was thinking about wiping it and going ahead and putting Slackware on and trying it out on this one just to see how it is, but I've gotten so many things just right that I'm very happy with it. Yeah, the colors, the schemes, the applications. I feel like I could run LFS for a while, and I just might. I mentioned in one of my IRC channels that I may look at the next book, which is ALFS, which is after Linux from scratch. At least I think it's after Linux. What it talks about and deals with is the idea of automating your packages for updates. Because right now, pretty much the only thing you can do is wait for a new version of BLFS, look at the revision changes, and then go in and manually download the newest packages that they have, install them, and that's how you would update it. Now, they don't really update, I don't believe, but every 3 months. So you'd have to wait about 3 months before you'd see new packages. And then if you've pulled in a lot of things that are outside of their books, I'm afraid you might end up starting to break some things. It was very difficult for me to get i3wm, and I really didn't think that a simple window tiling manager would be that hard to get running, but there were so many things that I had to pull in. And it's really funny because you would think, oh, okay, I want to install this small package. It's a small package. It really doesn't make much difference if it's going to be small. But then you look at the dependencies and it's like, oh, I want a package that's this big. It's like, oh my goodness, it's going to take me forever to get that. You start saying to yourself, is it really worth it? Is it really, really worth it? For instance, I thought, oh, I'm missing my calculator. So I thought, well, there's the GNOME calculator. So I thought, okay, I'll install that. I mean, how big could a calculator be? And the next thing you know, I have to install about a dozen more packages just to get the GNOME calculator to work. Now I do have GDK set up on here, and I've got most of the GNOME toolkit and all that, version 2 and 3, and I've been trying to stay as close to that as possible. I did go ahead when I initially built Xorg and everything else, install the latest Qt5, and I felt like I didn't know which tools I was going to start leaning towards, but I figured I might as well get both the GNOME toolkit and the Qt kit installed so that whatever I choose and whichever direction I go, I can work on those. So anyway, i3 has been fun, a little frustrating. MPD, getting it up and running was a little bit difficult. I don't know why it just has those kind of issues. I have Audacity working, and Audacity works really nicely. And when I say Audacity, I actually mean Audacious. I haven't gotten Audacity yet. As I find applications that I'm missing, I go and look for them and I search them out and I see their dependencies and then I go to try to see what I need to get them installed. It's really taken me a little bit outside my comfort zone because with Gentoo, I try my best never to introduce source outside of the Gentoo portage tree. In fact, I try my best not even to add any layman type repositories. In fact, I'm very happy that Simple Screen Recorder is now in the actual portage, and I don't have to worry about that repository being added in there. So I've done a lot more testing than I normally would, and since this is just a little test machine, I don't have a problem doing that. It's been a long road. You figure I started installing LFS back right after Christmas, actually. Around the 25th, actually around the 26th of December, maybe even 25th, might have been the evening of. Moxnix, right? Uh, but I was also still coming off of having the flu. I was still pretty sick and having a lot of trouble. But I figured, hey, if you can read a book and you can just enter in code, you don't really have to do too much brain thinking at that point in time just to get your basic system up and running. LFS teaches so much. Every time I do this, and this is probably the third time I've done it, I learn so much from doing LFS. I learned some new tricks at the command line, and I learned some new things to tweak things, and I've learned some stuff that I can now do inside of Gentoo that would even help me out in that environment, and I think that is a great thing. So I just wanted to talk about i3, give Dirk a bad time about the fact that, oh, I was going to tell him, I was going to say, hey, you know that really bad sound issue I had? I found out it was because my system was hissing so much at XFCE, and that once I got i3 installed, The hissing went away. All that noise distortion went away. It's happy with i3. Yes, sirree. But that's not the case. It just needed a different microphone, and that seems to work much better now. So the journey continues, and I will continue with this for a little bit longer. Hopefully, as I find new things here and there, I'll make a video, and maybe I'll do an LFS tidbits or something like that. I'm not sure where this is going to take me in this journey, but I just wanted to do something a little different. I'm going to be trying to do a lot more videos for 2018 when I have a chance. My work is terribly busy. I have been very busy this week as I've come back from a long vacation, but that's why I had some time last week to do so much for the community, and I'm happy I was able to. So if it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having, I hope you enjoy it. Try out LFS. Compile for days on end just to get to a command line prompt. Yeah. I promise you, you'll learn a few things, that's for sure. Bye, guys.